Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to talk to you about all things breast milk. So how to collect it, how to store it, and then how to use it. Since breast milk is considered liquid gold, we want to make sure that we are doing everything possible to preserve the integrity of the breast milk, as well as make sure that we're safely feeding it to our babies. So kind of seems like it'd be common sense, but there's actually a lot of guidelines that the CDC and other organizations recommend for the safe handling and usage of breast milk. Since it is something that we produce from our bodies, there is the possibility of contamination, bacteria growth if it's not stored properly, and then the degrading of the milk's quality in general. So I'm just going to go over in this video some of the proper ways to collect the breast milk, and then best ways to store it, and the guidelines for how to use it when you're ready. So we'll start first with what seems to be the obvious thing, how to collect your breast milk. So there's a few ways you can do it. You can hand express your breast milk, and if you're going to do this method, which is extremely effective in the first few days post-delivery, just to help stimulate that letdown and assist your body in producing the initial colostrum that you will be giving to your baby in the first few days. This is also something that everyone should just know how to do in case you, for any reason, have no access to an electric or manual pump and you need to release the milk. So if you're going to hand express, the most obvious thing you need is something to collect your breast milk in. So I think it's always a good idea to carry some kind of safe vessel, whether it be a bottle or maybe some freezer bags, to collect any hand expressed milk. That way it's in the proper container and you know that it's not going to be contaminated. And then essentially you just need to wash your hands. Having clean hands to make sure that you're not going to introduce any other kind of bacteria to your breast or the breast milk as it comes out. Next, you can use a manual pump. So I have a Mandela manual pump, and it's this little thing, and then you would attach it to the rest of the equipment. You can also use, which is probably one of my favorite items, a suction manual pump. I have this one. It is called the Haka. And then that's just the brand. They do have a whole bunch of other ones. You can find them on Amazon. They're like $10, but this has been extremely invaluable in my breastfeeding, pumping journey so far. I almost solely use this item. So it's just a piece of silicone. I call it my little grenade, and you would just attach it to your breast and then depress it, and it would create a light suction to help kind of collect any letdown or just give it a little bit of a pull so it pulls out a little more milk. I tend to use this one while I'm breastfeeding, so I'll have him feed on one side and I'll have this collect on the other side and then switch. I find this extremely invaluable. I just can't give it enough praise. And then the last option is going to be the obvious one. It's going to be an electric breast pump, and so I have the Spectra S1, which is really just has an internal battery. I absolutely love this pump. I love all of its features and just how versatile and personal you can make the settings compared to some of the other pumps. And it's pretty quiet. I used to pump in bed and in the middle of the night, and my husband says he doesn't even hear it. So definitely a great pump. I strongly recommend it. The only other pump I've used is going to be the Mandela Symphony, which is a hospital grade pump. I used it in the hospital during my labor and delivery, and I also work in the hospital, so I use it whenever I work. But I have to be honest, even the hospital grade pump, I still like my Spectra S1 better. It just has more options, I guess you could say, to make sure that you're getting the most effective pump for your body. So those are the ways that you can collect the breast milk. So with all of these ways, the final most important part is that you're going to put the breast milk that you collect into a safe container. So you want to put it into a food grade container, something like maybe a baby bottle. So I have like the big, taller baby bottles. This is an Philips Advent. He is not nearly drinking this much yet, so I use these bottles right now just to collect my milk throughout the day. I personally really like this one. I bought the set that has this little cap, that you can slide in. So instead of a nipple, you can put the cap, and that's how I store them, since I don't really use bottles quite as often unless he's staying with someone else. So something food grade, just make sure that whatever type of plastic container that you decide to use doesn't have BPA in it, and I think it's like a little recycling symbol with a 7. That'll indicate that it might have BPA in the plastic, so you want to avoid that. You can also use glass containers that are food grade. Those are excellent for safe storage. Just make sure that the container has a lid that seals tightly. That's going to be the most important part. And then you can also use freezer storage bags. The Lancino storage bag, each one is sealed, so as you can see it has like a part that you'll tear off right here, and they're sterilized on the inside. So if you're going to use any type of breast milk storage bags, make sure that that is what they're intended for. You can't use just like a regular Ziploc bag. So next we're going to talk about the guidelines for how to properly store breast milk. Right after you pump or express your breast milk into a container, it is good in room temperature or colder for 4 hours. So then once you do start refrigerating your breast milk, from that time, it is good for, they say, up to 4 days. If you do know that you're not going to be using that fresh breast milk anytime soon, it is best to freeze it as soon as possible, just to preserve the integrity of the breast milk. Things do start to break down and whatnot, so the faster you can freeze it, the better, if you know that you're not going to be using it. And then next is, how long is it good for in the freezer? You want to make sure that you have a designated freezer. So you don't need to have like a drop box freezer or anything like that, but just a separate door for your freezer. They recommend it's best up to 6 months, but it is acceptable up to 12 months. It is definitely recommended, do not store any breast milk on the door, because every time you open and close the freezer, the milk that's on the door is susceptible to temperature changes. So just trying to store it in the actual freezer. And I will show you all the different ways that I store my breast milk now. Just bought a Coca-Cola or soda thing and cut the top off, and then you can use it like a little file cabinet to store your breast milk. This is breast milk that I'm using right now, so you always want to use your oldest milk first. So it needs to be first in, first out. Milk that I'm not going to be using anytime soon, I have stored in Ziploc freezer bags, and this is just to save space essentially. Okay, so lastly is how to use the breast milk. So now you've frozen all your breast milk, and now you need to go ahead and use it for whatever reason. Maybe baby's going to daycare or to grandma's house or whatever, and you need to make up bottles. So once breast milk has been thawed, it is only good for 24 hours. You cannot refreeze breast milk once it's been thawed. If it doesn't get used, it needs to be tossed. It's not safe anymore. The best way to thaw breast milk is going to be overnight in the refrigerator, but you can, if you need to rapidly thaw something, get some lukewarm water and just sit the bag or bottle in the lukewarm water and give it a few minutes, and it should thaw out. Something else that I think a lot of people kind of wonder about is, once the baby starts eating out of a bottle, how long is that bottle now good for? Once the baby starts drinking out of that bottle, they need to drink whatever they're going to have out of it within 2 hours, and then after that it needs to be tossed. It's just not going to be healthy anymore. There's the potential for bacterial growth. Once the baby's drank out of the bottle, you can't put it back in the refrigerator and then heat it up later. Also, once milk's been heated up, you can't re-refrigerate it and heat it up later either. If you're not sure how much milk your baby's going to take and every last drop counts, you can measure out, maybe they take 3 ounces. Just put 1.5 ounces in a bottle for now. See how much they take. It takes another 3 minutes to warm a bottle up, so you can easily just go get more out if they want it and warm that up. So each time that we pump or feed the baby, your breast milk contents is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes it might be really high in fat, and then other times it could be low in fat. So when you do put your breast milk in the fridge to store it, you might notice that it starts to separate, where it's got a fat layer on top and then it starts to look a little more watery at the bottom. It's totally fine to go ahead and mix that up. I tend not to mess with it when it's in the fridge, but I will go ahead and mix it up before I put it in storage bags to freeze it, just so that everything's, you know, nice and mixed together and I don't leave any extra fat stuck to the inside of the bottle. And lastly, how do you store your breast milk? Let's say you're out for the day or traveling. If you think that you're going to be pumping or collecting with like a haka or something and you're going to be out for the day, strongly recommended to bring an insulated cooler. Breast milk is fine to be in an insulated cooler up to 24 hours.